Hey, what's happening, folks? DFS 5 pack, Matt and Ryan here. Not really DFS related, but we just wanted to kind of shoot the ball a little bit about some of the NBA trades that went down yesterday. Obviously, my Bucks made some splashes last night, so that guy's a little bit excited. And actually, not quite as action packed as I would have expected yesterday.
I mean, the Bucks are pretty action packed. They made a couple big moves. Excited to break that down with you. Yeah, aside from that, a lot of talk. I think that, with the draft being tomorrow night, maybe Thursday night, one of the two nights. I think it's tomorrow also. I think you're going to
free agency Friday, right?
Yeah, free agency Friday. I'll say this. I mean, not sure what more you could have wanted. Chris Paul was traded. Your Bucks made two pretty big deals. Bruce Brown got traded to the Nets. I mean,
that was the blockbuster trade of the day, right?
So I don't know. Yeah, no James Harden or anything yet, at least. But I think you're going to see more deals in the upcoming days.
I kind of expect Harden to be on the move today or tomorrow.
I agree.
At the end, the last point I think would be draft night. People trying to make moves right there.
The other point is the fact that they traded Covington. The writing's on the wall there.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, that's one that we didn't even mention. I'm excited to talk about that one with you. But that's like a waving the white flag move for me.
Well, I think it's for Houston, when you see how good the West is, you're not as good as the Clippers. You're clearly not as good as the Lakers. And you're probably not even as good as Golden State or Denver. So, to wave the white flag and just start over, I do think that's hard to do and admit defeat when you've been, pretty close for a while now. But you're not getting there, right? It really, other than the 1 year you kind of choked and shot 0 of 100 from 3 against Golden State in Game 7, you really haven't even been that close.
Yeah, except when is that the same year Chris Paul got hurt?
Yep. And then the Rockets, even without him, lost by 9 or 10 to Golden State or whatever it was, and they shot literally a record bad from 3-point range that game.
That's about as close as they've been, though. So I'm with you. Harden, I've read reports he views this as his Anthony Davis moment where it's his time to get out and go. I don't know if it's teaming up or whatever to go win a ring. I've also read that Houston potentially wants either Durant, which is not happening, or Kyrie in the deal. If I'm Brooklyn, we've talked about this. If I can give up Kyrie instead of all that other stuff, I'm doing that in a heartbeat.
If I could do Kyrie, Harden, and Durant, no. Get rid of Kyrie, but Karras, Harden, and Durant. I like that better because I think Karras, LeVert, you get more of a natural point guard in a lot of ways. I know that was not how he was supposed to be, but every year I've watched him play better. I'm this dude can basically just run your point guard for you. Him and Harden can kind of go back and forth. You got Durant, playing a little defense, being the sniper from the outside. I just like that better because Kyrie is nothing but ball dominant.
I think a guy they need to keep actually is Jared Allen. I think they need to keep him. I know it's been rumored, the deal potentially is LeVert, Dinwiddie, Jared Allen, first-round picks, whatever they can give up. And you make the deal if you have to for Harden. But I do whatever I can to keep Jared Allen. You're not keeping LeVert, assuming that's the deal, right?
Yeah, I guess it probably depends. How much do they think they have left with DeAndre Jordan? Because this move is to win this year. And if you think DeAndre Jordan can still run as a starting center in this league and play defense and get rebounds, I think it's easier to move on from Jared Allen. Because if you make this move, you are playing for right now. This is not a move for the future. This is this year.
Well, I would say this year and the next couple years. Not a future move, but the next couple years.
Yeah, it's so weird. I was talking to Alex about this last night. And I'm when I saw the Jrue Holiday trade. I'm the NBA is so much different than the other sports right now because you don't even play for 2 years into the future almost ever because everything changes in the offseason. It's kind of fun and exciting. You don't get moves like this in baseball and football. Teams get blown up, reassembled, put back together again, all within a couple of years. So it is the ultimate win now league.
No doubt about that, and it is fun.
Yeah, it is. It's a lot of fun. We never get stuff like this in baseball where so many game-changing moves. Superstars forcing their way off of teams and stuff like that. It's wild. It's insane. It's crazy. It's fun. I enjoy every minute of it.
I think that just comes down to the players have all the power in the NBA. That's just what it is.
Yep, that's what I was explaining to her last night. I'm it was exactly the conversation that we had a while ago. Where you're the front office wins it for you in baseball. The coaches win it for you in football. Coaches and quarterback on the field, obviously. And then in basketball, the stars have all the power because A guy like LeBron is 20% of the people on the field. When you're playing football, even like a Tom Brady, you still have 22 starters. Like, he's only one guy.
Yeah, I mean, you need everyone to do their job. In the NBA, one or two guys can carry you, as we've seen.
Absolutely. So let's start with the Chris Paul trade, actually. What were your thoughts on that? I know we touched on this one briefly yesterday, so I don't think we have to take a long time with it. What were your overall thoughts on that from both an OKC and a Phoenix Suns perspective?
So I thought about this deal like a lot yesterday. I do feel like Phoenix gave up too much. So I just do. I think that giving up Oubre, Rubio, obviously if you're getting Chris Paul, you're going to move Rubio. But to give up a couple of young players, I mean, who knows what those young players will be? But their first round pick from last year, another young player who they like. You know, they gave up Kelly Oubre, they gave up Rubio. I like Chris Paul. I just think that Phoenix, you know, obviously their goal is to make the playoffs. They're not winning an NBA title with the team they have right now. They've got a nice duo, though, in Booker and DeAndre Ayton, and they probably want to show those guys that they're willing to do what it takes to win. I'm just like not sure dealing Oubre was the move. That said, Phoenix got Oubre for Trevor Ariza. So, like, you know, it's like on one hand, I feel like they gave up too much, but on the other hand, like, it is what it is, and they got the best player in the deal, which always means something to me.
Well, I wanted to look this up too. Like, I like Kelly Oubre, don't get me wrong. He's a good player. But is he a difference maker? Like, I don't know that that's going to be the case. And again, like, he's been in the league now for like 5 years. He is 24 years old. He's a good player, but he doesn't like move the needle necessarily as far as winning. And I like the idea of how Chris Paul fits with Booker and Ayton. My big problem here, if I'm Phoenix, is like, this is a win now move, and you can't win right now. You're not good enough. Not in this West.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, like, they will probably make the playoffs, but they have a much, much higher likelihood of not making the playoffs than like winning the West, in my opinion.
Hells to the yes. I agree with that. Maybe the truest statement you've ever said in your entire life, because I could not agree with anything more. Yes, I completely agree with you. Better odds of missing the playoffs than coming out of the West.
Now, to the point about Oubre, though, like, it seems like they did give up Oubre instead of like their first round pick this year, which they have like 10th overall, and other future assets. So in that sense, you know, I feel like they need to hit on this draft pick this year.
Yeah. Overall, I don't get it. I just don't think it puts you in a. You're so desperate to win right now, but this isn't going to get you anything, like you said. Like, what's your upside here? 5th seed?
Oh man, what's their ultimate upside? Yeah, hard to see them being higher than that.
Like, you're not better than the Clippers. You're not better than the Lakers. You're probably not better than Golden State, especially if Golden State makes a move. You know what I mean? Like, those three teams are all going to be leaps and bounds better than you.
Yeah, agreed. I mean, Golden State with the number 2 pick in the draft. I mean, yes, that I think they're going to be good next year.
I still I can state, and I saw this the other day, like, that number 2 pick's on the way out the door, and I'm getting Bradley Beal. Or whatever I can do, because Thompson, Beal, Steph Curry, like, man, think about the 3-pointer line. Like, how are you going to defend that?
So I don't disagree with that, but I've also heard, like, you know, a dynasty type team has a chance to kind of, if they really like someone at the top of the draft, to like, you know, get younger, rebuild while also adding someone like to the mix now. I see it both ways. I really do.
Sure. If anything, I'd love to move Wiggins if I'm Golden State, because I just don't think he's a guy that I want on the team.
Definitely would love to move Wiggins. 100% agree with that.
Man, like, if I can like get Wiggins to like the Knicks or something and give me like a Mitchell Robinson I can put in the middle to play defense, like, I'm feeling really, really good about that, because Wiggins is probably a better player than a guy like a Mitchell Robinson. But like, the Knicks would love to have like a guy like Wiggins with some potential upside. Maybe if it was his team, it would change the way he views the game or something. And I don't know, how many shots has Wiggins taken a game with Curry and Klay Thompson? Like, you're the third banana at best.
Yeah, I mean, obviously Wiggins is more skilled than Mitchell Robinson. I don't think that's the question. I mean, obviously, but Mitchell Robinson's a more valuable NBA player than Andrew Wiggins. There's just, I mean, I think it's close, because Wiggins, I feel like at some points, like when I make a comment like that, I almost feel like I'm underrating him just because he should be so much better. He still can get like 20 points a game with ease. Like, there aren't like 50 people in the world that can do that. You know what I mean?
No, he's there is still like you still hold out that hope, right? That like he could be the difference maker that he was drafted to be.
It's just
Like
way
I don't
over.
know. Yeah, absolutely. But like that's why I'm sending him to the Knicks, which are just going to screw up anything anyways.
Mm-hmm.
Um, okay. Harden, you think he ends up on Brooklyn or Philly?
Brooklyn. I mean, I don't think there's. I think the writing's just on the wall. When there's smoke, there's fire. I've thought all along that deal made the most sense because, I mean, there aren't that many like teams like wanting to win now that could deal for Harden, that want to deal for Harden, that have the assets to deal for him. Brooklyn's that team. I mean, they've got a young stud, which whether we think, and I don't think they should be trying to deal him, they are willing to deal LeVert. You know, they've got Jared Allen, a nice young piece. Spencer Dinwiddie, who teams like a lot. Like that's a nice package. I mean, that's a better package than almost any team can offer.
Because I was thinking about it like if Houston had Dinwiddie, LeVert, still had Westbrook. Now this was before Rocco was on the move because I still kind of liked him right there. But they're bringing over Torian Prince as well and Jared Allen. Like, do you think they could make the playoffs in the West? I think they would be fighting it out for a bottom seed. Yeah, Westbrook,
Yeah,
Karis
definitely
LeVert.
with Westbrook, but definitely I think they would. Like I think that they could easily be a better team than the Suns
Yeah, I
with
think that
West.
would be a fun team to watch too.
Definitely, I mean, agreed. So, but it sounds like Westbrook's going to be gone too. It sounds like the writing's on the wall for Westbrook to the Knicks.
I mean, that's one that makes sense to me because honestly, I think Russ, as much as he would love a championship, he does seem relatively content just to get his money and be the star of the show. And I mean, I think New York would be a perfect place for him. And I think he could actually make them competitive. Like he has a one-man wrecking machine. He can at least get the Knicks in the East, to be a bottom seed playoff team probably.
That's literally. I don't know if you've seen much about this, but you said exactly what a guy. I can't even remember who I was watching, but they were talking about this. Like, it makes perfect sense because Russ can be the star of the show. He'll put New York like back on the radar a little bit. They're obviously not going to come out of the East, but I'll just say this: like, I don't disagree with that or think you're wrong, but maybe Russ is not happy with that. Maybe he has no interest in going to like a team like that because he wants to win. We don't know,
Right? People keep the point I keep hearing with Westbrook that I can't really argue with, and I'm a big Westbrook fan, is what championship or potential championship caliber team does Westbrook make sense to go to? And I'm like, that's a good point because I don't have one.
Well, because he's like he needs his own team basically. He's not a second guy, and he's not good enough. He's just not everyone can win a title. You know what I mean?
Yeah, he's Allen Iverson in the sense that like he's amazing.
Yes.
He's super athletic. He's fun to watch. But
I actually
using
think
him as your star is not a championship recipe.
I actually think it's a great comparison. Like I think those guys will go down like very similarly in terms of like how good they were in the NBA.
Yeah, I forget who I was hearing say this. If it was like Broussard the other day, where it's like, about 7 years in, like we knew AI was pound for pound one of the most exciting basketball players of all time to watch, but there was no recipe for a championship with him as your superstar.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely, in some ways though, I do feel like a team with him as the best player could be better than a team with Harden as their best player. Like, I don't think those guys are that much different in that sense.
Dribble, 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 shoot. Yeah,
Harden's a guy that's ever going to win a title either, unless he goes to like one of these super teams, which I'm not saying they're going to win a title, but they're right up there if it's Harden, Kyrie, and Durant.
Yeah, they're very talented. I know we talked about that and saying we didn't think that would work that great. And then all of a sudden, everything I heard yesterday, nobody really seems to think that's going to work. And I'm like, oh, geez. Like, I thought maybe I would be out on a limb on this one, but it sounds like all the talking heads are like, this just doesn't work. We got 3 ball dominant guys. Like, all of a sudden, is Kyrie going to feel slighted? Like, is KD doing this behind his back, or is he completely on board with it? I like the Nets better almost without James Harden because I think Karis LeVert and Spencer Dinwiddie and Prince and all these guys can play.
I love the upgrade if they could get Harden over Kyrie. The only thing I'll say about I don't disagree that they're a better team with those guys, but like Harden's a superstar, and if all those guys are playing well in the playoffs, you could win a title, even if they're not the perfect fit because they're all very, very good. I mean, and I think they're going to win a ton of regular season games too. So they're going to be in a good position for the playoffs.
Yeah. I mean, they could definitely win the East, no doubt about it. So what were the other moves yesterday that we were kind of taking a look at? Then we'll get into my Bucks right after that.
Well, we can talk about the Schroeder deal.
Yeah. Out of all the deals made,
I love that deal.
It feels like they didn't give up anything.
Yeah, they didn't give up much. They did give up, I think, like in getting Schroeder, like, you know, cap space or money available to like make other moves. But I mean, how many moves do they really need to make? I think that Rondo is probably on his way out. Schroeder's
like
a nice fit there, man.
I like it. I like it a lot. And especially on Schroeder's a guy who can keep you competitive in a lot of regular season games, right? Like if you're the Lakers, you're probably not super obsessed with the idea of being the number one seed. You kind of feel like you can win some road games if necessary. After you had a very long year, maybe LeBron does a little more resting and stuff like that. And Schroeder can keep you competitive in some of these games to at least it will be more entertaining or even get the dub a few times. I think he's a nice fit to come off the bench. He's not a true point guard, but I don't need him to be a true point guard all the time because, quite frankly, you know, LeBron's capable of doing that. They didn't give up much to get him. I thought it was a great ad.
So did I. One thing I'll say though, and I was kind of reading a deeper dive into this deal. Like, you know, they gave up Danny Green as part of this deal, who wasn't very good for them last year. I was reading though, like, you know, Danny Green is a true 3-and-D player. And when those guys don't make, you know, if they have an off year from three, like that year or whatever, it seems like they suck and their value's shot. But most of the times, like, and those guys just fluctuate. Whereas Schroeder shot really well from three last year. And that's I mean, you're the math guy. I can't remember the exact, whatever the math is going into it, like going into the future, it's predictive that Green will shoot better and Schroeder a little bit worse. So I don't know if that like means anything to you. I just think Schroeder's a really good player for them because they're a little bit older and he's a guy, like you said, he can handle the ball and he can win games for you against lesser teams when LeBron's not trying to take on a full load.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of the way I look at it. Also, Danny Green's, 33? Like, he's older. The odds of him, like, he's not getting better, right? If anything, he only gets a little bit worse every single year. He was not great for the Lakers. He is a 3-and-D guy. But I've heard my boy Wes Matthews linked to the Lakers, and I think that's kind of like a lateral move right there.
Well, yeah, because KCP's gone too. I mean, those guys are all the same, exactly the same.
Yeah, pretty much. Like, I couldn't, if you asked me to rank KCP, Wes Matthews, and Danny Green, like, let's just go back to Danny Green and Wes Matthews. I'd be like, I don't know. Like, they do kind of the exact same thing. Matthews might be a better defender even.
It really depends on the season.
Yeah, exactly. So I don't think if you can fill in guys like that, those guys to me are replaceable. Because let's not forget, like, the Lakers struggled from three a lot. And KCP had his moments, and Danny Green had his moments, but overall, they just were not shooting the three ball very effectively. So they've got to find – you can find guys that can make that, you know, in free agency.
No doubt about it.
So, all right. Let's see here. Anything else that we need to touch on? What did you think about? Do you think the Robert Covington move to Portland? What do you think that does for them? Because with Nurkic back for a full year, Rocco now brings some of that defense that they lost. I think that's a nice upgrade for them. I still don't think Portland is nearly good enough to make a real play to beat one of the LA teams or even Golden State, but I do think that's a really nice ad for them.
So I do too. And like, I agree. Portland is not good enough to beat those teams, but like hardly anyone's good enough to beat those teams. And I think Portland is good enough where they should make moves to add. Like, you know, I think this was a good move for them. They went to the Western Conference Finals a couple years ago. They've been a playoff team. They've got one of the best, you know, some would say 10 players in the game in Dame, who's 30, not getting any younger. They're not good enough. They're not coming out of the West, but they're a team who thinks they can. So I love the move for them. I think it makes a ton of sense for their team.
You know, we kind of joke around about it. And we were talking about even with Phoenix, like you're not winning the championship. And you said the point, well, who is? Well, it's only one team, right? If you are Portland, like you never win the championship, right? Like, so this is the fact that you're at least competitive and relative and in the playoffs. And I do think you could put some pressure on some better teams and make things more difficult on them, especially with the full year of Nurkic.
Yeah, and I do like this move a lot. I mean, he's what they were missing. Like that, you know, Melo looked pretty good for them. So now all of a sudden they're like solid at the small forward, power forward position. Whereas, at the beginning of last season, they were really weak.
Yeah, we saw like Gary Trent Jr. have some moments down the stretch where he looked a lot better. So you bring in some stuff off the bench. I would love if they could add another. Well, if Wes Matthews, for example, would go back to Portland, I think like a piece like that, like another D&3 guy just for a little bit more depth and stuff like that would be great. But Robert Covington fills some holes for that team.
I feel like if they could, deal McCollum for another similar player, for someone of his stature, but like of a different position, that would be in their best interest.
Sure, maybe a guy who, because the ball, I don't know where would he work.
Like at this point, I don't even think that they would be interested in, there's always rumors Kevin Love for McCollum. I don't even think that they would be interested in that.
Kevin Love just never feels like he's healthy anymore. So I'm Kevin Love is like done for me. You know what I mean?
Plus, also like the last thing the Cavs need is another guard.
Yeah, that's true. That's a good point. What happened to Porter the other day? Didn't he get in trouble?
Yeah, he got arrested. Nothing major. He got into a little car accident, like solo car accident, and had some stuff in his car. It wasn't like a DUI or anything.
Was it weapons or drugs?
He had a little bit of weed and a gun. So
I mean, but who doesn't drive around with weed and gun in the car?
Yeah, so I'm sure he'll be fine.
Hey, how else am I going to roll?
Yeah.
Okay, well, let's move on to my Milwaukee Bucks. I want to get you as an outsider. What did you think of these moves?
So, man, I'm a little bit torn. I like the moves. Milwaukee had to do something, if for nothing else, than to show Giannis they were in it long term. And I'll preface all this by saying we don't know, like, the negotiations they've had with Giannis, like, what he wants. I'm sure that he's signed off on all this stuff, whether he said he's going to commit to them or not. We have no idea any of that stuff. And that's the NBA nowadays. The player kind of holds the team by the balls. They obviously had to do something because of their letdown in the playoffs. I do feel like the moves are a little bit desperate. They reek of desperation. They had to make the moves. And I think that, overall the Bucks are going to be a better team this year, no doubt about it. Part of me is thinking, though, like, how much better is Drew Holiday than Eric Bledsoe? Like a couple of years ago when the Bucks traded for Bledsoe, I mean, he was damn near the exact same type of player that Drew Holiday is now. Now, Drew Holiday is more of a veteran guy. You can trust him more. He's better defensively. He's better than Bledsoe. Yep. But how much better than Bledsoe is he? Seems like Bledsoe regressed when he was in Milwaukee. I really like that move, that pickup for New Orleans. I think New Orleans did very well in the move. And I don't not like the move for Milwaukee. I just don't think, oh, my God, Milwaukee is now going to win the NBA title. I like the Bogdanovich move a lot also, though. I know he was a guy that they've had their eyes on. Part of me likes that move more than the Holiday move. Now I'll say this, and we had a brief discussion. I know we were like going to sleep. The first round picks mean nothing to me if Giannis stays. I mean, because they're late round. We don't know. Maybe he said like he's going to stay. It is a little bit risky, though. If you start dealing picks in the future without knowing if he's going to stay or not. What's your ultimate take?
So I agree mostly with everything you said, and I think that that all makes sense to me. And I was actually texting with my buddy Dan, who plays in some fantasy leagues that we're in and stuff like that. I really liked his kind of breakdown on this one, and I'll actually look it up again really quickly because he pays a ton of attention. Let's see here. What did he say? He thinks Drew's a big upgrade over Eric Bledsoe. Now, the regular season Eric Bledsoe, who plays well sometimes, maybe not so much. But playoff Bledsoe has been a complete and utter letdown. I trust, they're both veterans, but I trust Drew in a bigger moment much more than I trust Eric Bledsoe.
Agreed. I guess my point was, like, when they traded for Bledsoe, like, I feel like his value has gone down a lot the past couple of years.
Probably.
That's all I say. Like, when the Bledsoe move was made, like when Bledsoe was on Phoenix, he was a very similar player to Drew Holiday. You just never saw him in the playoffs because they never made the playoffs. And it's shown that he crumbles in the playoffs.
He is, to me, like Drew Holiday is a better version of Eric Bledsoe. You're right. Like, they're not a very big. Well, they're stacked. They're ripped, right, but they're not very tall. Holiday is not a great three-point shooter, but I would say he's a better shooter than Eric Bledsoe. Not by significant amounts, but he's definitely a better three-point shooter.
Agreed.
Eric Bledsoe is a very good defender, but Drew Holiday is one of the premier guard defenders in the league. So a slight upgrade right there.
Yes.
I think for me, the biggest thing here, not to sound like Skip frickin' Bayless, but it's the clutch gene. I trust Drew Holiday a lot more in a big moment than Eric Bledsoe because honestly, I trust you with the basketball right now about as much as I trust Eric Bledsoe in a big moment.
I mean, fair point. I'll say this, man, I do like the Bogdanovich move a lot. You talked about the three-point shooting. He is a really good three-point shooter. He's going to get a ton of open looks now. Like, I think that move is key for them. I was wondering, like, how they got away with not dealing DiVincenzo in the first deal or why they didn't include him instead of the first-round picks, but clearly that's why. So, man, I like both those moves together make a lot of sense to me.
Because so one of the things Milwaukee's had, right, the last couple of years is a lot of depth.
Exactly.
They don't have that anymore.
I feel like they do. Those guys that they dealt, like, you can, like, none of those guys are that good. So you can replace those guys with guys like Marvin Williams, veteran guys that want to sign there that, you know, are older, that aren't like, you know, guys for the future. But honestly, like DJ Wilson, like, I mean, his value is nothing now. You know what I mean? Like, and that was a first round pick for them. So I feel like they did very well, you know, and getting two players they wanted. It does seem like, and I said this, it reeks a little bit of desperation, and they went after, you know, they got those two guys because those were two guys available. But that's all they could do. They had to make moves. So what else were they going to do?
It's probably the deepest starting five in the NBA, though, right now, because Drew Holiday, Bogdanovich, Middleton, Giannis, and Brook Lopez. It's a very, very good starting five. You don't have the same star power because you don't have Anthony Davis and LeBron, or even like Kyrie and Kevin Durant, for example. But 1 through 5, that's a really good starting five. And as far as not having the depth anymore, I agree with what you said. Like, these guys are replaceable. You got Sterling Brown, maybe Robin Lopez, and stuff like that. Like, we're going to miss George Hill a little bit, but you can get a guy to come in off the bench and play point guard. I love to see what I'm very, very much anticipating what they're going to do on Friday. Can you go out and make a splash with like a Gallinari or a Goran Dragic or something like that to add a little bit more depth onto this team? Another guy who could potentially have a big game in the playoffs and something like that, because you've traded away all of your assets, or all of your like lower assets, all of your depth, all of your first round picks. You got to make a splash in free agency as well. Nothing major, but you got to add something so that you have some other guys to come in to play, and even like the Wes Matthews characters of the world.
I love the Gallinari call if they can somehow get him Donovich off the bench.
Sure, and that's great. I think that would work, and I think Gallinari is another guy that, like, you don't need to play him much in the regular season, play him 20 minutes a game. But when it comes down to it and you got half-court issues down the stretch of a game, he's a guy that, one, is a superb free throw shooter.
Yeah.
He's a guy that can get to the line at the end of the game a little bit. He spreads the floor because he's a wonderful shooter, and you're not going to ask him for too much.
No, like, man, especially, you know, I love that call for Milwaukee. And listen, like, Drew Holiday, like, I feel like we've talked about this deal a bunch, you know, because there's only so few players that like are available in trades. I would rather have seen Milwaukee get Bradley Beal, but he probably wasn't available. And if he was available, they would have had to give up more. So they don't have much more to give. So they got who they could get. And I agree with it, because all of a sudden, if you wait and you don't make that move, then someone else makes that move. And then you're stuck making even more of a desperation move. They had to do something because they have to come out of the East this year to keep Giannis, in my opinion.
So I told you, I've always been kind of a hater of Colin Cowherd. I think most of what he says is just I don't agree with a lot of it. But for somehow he ended up on my YouTube the other day. And like for the last month, I've had him on more than normal. And I feel like he's actually starting to make some good points. I don't know if he's drinking something different or what the deal is, but like lately he's made more and better good points. He talked about the Green Bay Packers and like the Midwest mentality of being smart with your money, stockpiling your draft picks. He's like, but don't just once in your life. Don't you just want to pick up the tab for everybody, get a sports car or something like that? Like the Green Bay Packers, why don't they ever make a move to help Aaron Rodgers? Like, you are right there right now. Add a tough defensive guy, add a Will Fuller or something like that. You never go out and do it. And so I'm like looking at the Milwaukee Bucks, like, even if this doesn't work, we've discussed this before, I like the fact that you're at least trying to make a move. Because we've been so close the last couple of years, but it hasn't come to fruition. Giannis, is probably sitting there like, what are you going to do for me? Every other team in the NBA wants me. So give me reasons to stay here. At least you're fucking trying.
I agree with that. We talked about that a lot, especially, me from Cleveland, you from Milwaukee. That point resonates with me. I wish the Cavs are still in that mindset. But like you just talked about in the NBA, it only takes a couple of years. All you need is that one player. Okay, just to flip this around though, from the New Orleans side, like I really like this move. Like I don't think they could have gotten much more for Drew Holiday. Like I said, I think Eric Bledsoe is going to be a fine replacement for him. I think we're going to see more of the Eric Bledsoe from old. The pressure is going to be off. He's got good young play with.
See, my problem is like now him and Lonzo, they don't make any sense together.
Him and Lonzo don't make much sense together. They're both very good defenders.
Yes, they are, but they're like in so many ways the same player. Like once every 2 weeks, you're like, oh, this guy can shoot the three. And then 6 games in a row, you're like, no, you can't. You're not a very good 3-point shooter. You're an excellent defender. You're, more of a pass first. I think Bledsoe's a better driver of the basketball. Lonzo's a better passer. But I mean, they don't work together in the backcourt at the same time.
No, maybe they have plans to move one of those guys,
Yeah, then I think they should.
I think the big thing with them was getting those 3 first-round picks. I'm sure they're praying now that Giannis leaves because all of a sudden that could turn into gold.
Yeah, they got – what else did they get? Do you remember from when they moved to Anthony Davis? What kind of picks did they get from that?
Similar package. They got 3 first-round picks.
So if I'm New Orleans, and I feel like I'm not that far away from being able to win right now because I think Brandon Ingram's an all-out stud, assuming he's still there, right?
Of course.
And, what is Zion going to be? We'll see, but, he could definitely be something special.
And Brandon Ingram will be there because isn't he like a restricted free agent?
I don't know for sure.
Yeah, there is no way that they're letting him go after the year he had after they traded Anthony Davis for him. You know what I mean? I couldn't see that in a million years.
Do they have a way to package, i.e. a Bradley Beal? I don't know why Washington would want to do this, but I'm just saying, get Lonzo Ball and a couple draft picks over there for Bradley Beal. So now you have a true shooting guard to pair with Ingram and Zion.
The more I think, sorry to cut you off, but the more I think about Washington, they're smart to deal Beal now. I mean, they're not doing anything. They have delusions of grandeur if they think John Wall's going to come back and they're going to be a legit playoff team in the East. I mean, maybe they could sneak into the AC because it's so bad, but nothing more than that. And John Wall being back will hurt Beal's value, in my opinion.
Probably.
Might go back to what we saw before. And before, we've talked about this, Beal was not the player he is now.
Well, honestly, who the fuck is John Wall right now?
We have no idea.
We haven't seen him play, and it's been almost 2 full seasons, right? He may not be any good anymore.
That's true.
He's a speed player, right? He gets up and down the court quick. He gets to the hole because he's so fast. I mean, he's not as young as he once was, right? Because 2 years have passed. He's probably not athletic. He's not a great shooter. I mean, he's a decent passer, but there's, if I'm Washington, I'm doing whatever I can because you're got to be in rebuild mode. I like the term you use, illusions of grandeur. You're not going anywhere, Washington.
Right. I mean, yeah, I'm with you.
I mean, hell, maybe for New Orleans, again, this doesn't make a lot of sense for Portland, but CJ McCollum with Lonzo or Bledsoe would make more sense in the backcourt.
Definitely, but I'm not sure who they could.
I can't figure out how that works for New Orleans, what they're getting, except for maybe, but they're not in the mood for stockpiling picks right now.
Man, I'll say this, it does, they should deal the Bledsoe Lonzo. I like Bledsoe in New Orleans, but not with Lonzo. I'm kind of with you there.
Yeah, and which one do you want moving forward? Where can you get some trade value out of there? Because Bledsoe's trade value has never been lower.
Right.
And I don't think you acquired him just to flip him. Maybe if you did, that's great. Lonzo, I mean, his trade value isn't exactly sky high at this point either. So you got 2 guys that don't shoot the 3 ball well. They just don't work together in the backcourt for a team that's already weak at the 3-point range.
Yeah, I'm 100% with you. So just for a little fun exercise, I haven't even read this yet. ESPN has 7 big NBA trades we want to see this week. Let's just run through them and see what you think.
Okay. I have nothing to do today, so let's do it.
Yeah, so this is fun. So interesting. I haven't seen any. I mean, these are just rumors that they're making up. Beal to Minnesota for the number 1 pick and Culver. So Minnesota gets Beal, Washington gets number 1 pick, James Johnson, Jarrett Culver, and Jake Layman. What do you think about? I
actually see that this morning because I think I clicked on that article for a second and only read the first one. So I think I'll be out after this one, not knowing it. But number 1, I mean, we just said it. Like Washington's not playing for anything. Like they're just again only you have to have delusions of grandeur to
Yes.
think that you're going anywhere. So they should move on from Beal. I just don't know what Minnesota's doing.
I don't either, but I like the addition of Beal for them. I mean, because I like Beal a lot, and then all of a sudden you've got a real nice threesome in Russell, Towns, and Beal.
This reeks to me though of like the same thing as Phoenix. Like yes, you're going to be more competitive. You might get your way into the bottom half of the playoffs. But that's not a threesome that's doing any kind of real damage. Like, is it a big enough deal for you just to get in the playoffs? Because Minnesota's got very little playoff experience post Kevin Garnett. So maybe that is enough for them.
Talent-wise, I think that threesome is better than Phoenix.
Probably. But the Towns, Beal, and Russell ain't winning a damn thing. You're probably not even winning a playoff series with that.
I knew you were going to say that. All of those. Maybe it's one of those things like when you put all those three together, they turn into like the ultimate winner.
No. I say with great confidence, no.
All right, moving on. So, interesting one. Golden State gets Blake Griffin and the number 7 pick. Detroit gets Andrew Wiggins, the number 2 pick, and Kevon Looney. Interesting.
I must have looked at this one too because I was reading over that. I'm like, that's a tough one for because I'm like, who the hell is Blake Griffin right now?
I like that deal for Golden State a lot. I'd much rather have Blake Griffin than Andrew Wiggins right now for that team, for sure, especially. And I mean,
are you going to roll straight small ball then and put Blake at the 5, Dre at the 4?
I don't see why not.
I mean, if you're just going to commit to small ball, like I get it, but because to me, like you're more than anything. Who would you rather have, Andrew Wiggins or Blake Griffin, if you're trying to win right now?
Blake Griffin, no doubt about it.
Okay. You're a bigger Blake fan than I am. I do. I don't think Blake Griffin's that good.
Okay, I think he would fit well for Golden State. It's just for me, it's a matter of whether they, that drop down in picks. If they really like someone at number 2, which obviously we have no idea.
I got to see something here. So, like, my thing with Blake Griffin is, like, he's a big guy. And if you're rolling small to the 5, he's a big guy who's not a very good rebounder.
He can shoot a little bit, though.
A little bit, yeah. I'm trying to remember how old he is. He's got to be, 31 at this point-ish? 30?
You're right. There's definitely a chance that he's washed. But I think his upside's greater than Wiggins for sure. I mean, I just don't think Wiggins fits there at all.
Yeah, I don't think Wiggins fits there at all either. I just didn't think like Blake Griffin was the guy that would fit there. I would love to see them. Again, like I mentioned, Bradley Beal. Otherwise, like a true center to play some defense.
This is what it says about it. So I'll read this and then we can see what we think. If healthy after knee surgery, Griffin could be the player the Warriors need to return to finals contention. He was an All-NBA player in 2019, averaging a career-best 24.5 points to go along with 5.4 assists and 36% shooting on three-pointers on nearly 7 attempts per game. And with Klay Thompson and Draymond Green both under contract until 23-24, shedding the final year of Wiggins' deal for Griffin's contract, which expires in 22, could be helpful in balancing the Warriors' books long-term, especially from a luxury tax perspective. The Pistons would get a player 6 years younger than Griffin, who plays the most difficult position to find in the NBA, a playmaking wing who can shoulder significant ball handling and shot creation responsibilities. While Wiggins' contract is long and potentially odious, he has a 20 points per game score for his career, and there's still reason for hope to hope his talent can be groomed. Basically everything we talked about.
Yeah, it's not a big needle mover for me. I guess the big question is, what is Blake Griffin right now? I don't have a good answer for that because he did not look good last year, but he clearly wasn't healthy.
Agreed. The upside of him is a really nice fit for Golden State, in my opinion. And they're right about, I would not – it's so funny. Wiggins is the ultimate, I don't even know what to call it because they're right. There aren't that many guys that can do that, score 20 a game, handle the significant ball handling responsibilities. But if he's doing that for your team sucks.
No arguments.
Okay, so I don't know if you read the next one, but moving on, another Golden State deal. Golden State gets Mitchell Robinson and the number 8.
I think I said that.
Yeah, Mitchell Robinson and the number 8 pick, but not for Wiggins. New York gets the number 2 pick. So Robinson and 8 for 2.
Oh, I would do that in a heartbeat.
if I'm
But
Golden
I
State.
preface that by saying, like, I'm not an expert on the guys coming out of
Right.
the draft. This is how much you want them. Like, I don't know it. Like, it's the guy that you get at 2 leaps and bounds greater than the guy you get at 8.
Well, the guy that they're projected to take it to is a center, really young center, who projects to be better than Mitchell Robinson. Obviously, the number 1, 2 pick in the draft.
Yep.
But right now, I think Mitchell Robinson is, I don't expect Wiseman, who's the guy, the center, to be better than Mitchell Robinson from day one. He could be, but then you also get the number 8. I'm making that move if I'm Golden State. You got to balance the win now and the future. And there is no one in this draft, in my opinion, that's so, you need to take.
Yeah, because I was of the understanding, just based on listening to people talk about it, this is not the most amazing draft of all time, right?
No, it's not.
Yeah, that's what I thought. So if you don't love the guy that you're getting at 2, and I think Mitchell Robinson is a good fit for them because they've been looking for like a center to protect the rim, be a quality rebounder. You don't need him to be an offensive-oriented guy because under currently constructed, you have Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, and Andrew Wiggins. Like, you have offense. But this guy's going to help make up for your defensive inefficiencies with guys like Steph.
No doubt about it. I'm with you. So
I would do that trade.
All right. So the next one, we've talked about this one already a bunch, but Houston gets Jared Allen, Spencer Dinwiddie, Rodions Kurucs, Karis LeVert, the number 19 pick in this draft, the 2021 swap, 2024 first round pick, 2025 swap. Brooklyn gets James Harden, Ben McLemore. Man.
So if I'm Houston, hey, James.
Peace.
Like,
you can't get a better package than that. With all those picks, I mean.
I think it's a great move for Houston right now. And then you have to ask yourself, do we keep Russ around? Or do we want to move on from him and see what we can stockpile around him? I don't know who's going to give up a lot for Russ. Like, what would the Knicks be giving up? Because they don't exactly have great pieces I have to help me build.
Right. I have no idea, but I'm with you.
Like, I don't need Mitchell Robinson now because I have Jared Allen. Kevin Knox looks like a flop. Or Julius Randle? Okay, I like Julius Randle, but maybe you move Russ for like Randle in their pick or something.
I don't know. Interesting.
But if I'm Houston, absolutely do that deal. Because at this point right now, you're done. Like the experiment that you had, it's not working. You moved on from Rocco. You let go of Clint Capella for next to nothing. Like, you're clearly in rebuild mode. So I would do that draft in a heartbeat, or I would do that trade in a heartbeat.
Seems too much to give up if I'm Brooklyn. You have to make the move because it's James Harden, and you're never going to get a guy like that. But
and you talk about a team with no depth in? Like, who the hell's left on the Nets roster?
I love LeVert. For me, it's like more about the picks, too. Those guys, like you mentioned, aren't getting any younger. Like in 2025, Brooklyn might suck.
Yeah, and you can like, to me, I can build around Karis LeVert and Jared Allen. I'm not anywhere close, but I can start building another new competent team around them with all these picks. And then I can probably try to flip like a Taurean Prince and Spencer Dinwiddie. Like, Dinwiddie would be a great ad for Milwaukee. They have nothing left to give you, but like another team like that.
I'm with you, man. So I guess, like, I don't know, man. It almost feels like Brooklyn has to deal for Harden, but that's the NBA nowadays.
I mean, it doesn't work because Kevin Durant and Kyrie are like bosom buddies right now, and like they just Skip and Shannon. We're talking about that yesterday, and they're like I think of Kyrie and Kevin Durant as like high schoolers right now. Like, Kyrie's like, I want to go to Brooklyn. Kevin's like, oh, I'm just going to go to Brooklyn because that's where Kyrie is. We're best friends. Blah blah blah. Like, they're making their decisions, and like they don't go well together. And you add James Harden, this is not a good fit. That is a lot of talent, but it's not a good fit.
I will say, like, we laughed at it at the beginning. I like Bruce Brown on this Brooklyn team, especially if they get James Harden. He's the type of guys they need. They need guys like him and guys that can shoot and big men. That's it.
Yeah, he'll have no problem. Bruce Brown would have no problem just facilitating and taking 3 shots a game.
Exactly. So I think that's a nice piece for them. All right, moving on. Another Brooklyn deal. It's also with Dinwiddie. Brooklyn gets Josh Richardson and the number 21 and 34 picks in this draft, and Philly gets Spencer Dinwiddie. This is like a nothing move to me.
Man, it's so hard to answer that because I don't know what else is going on in Philadelphia right now. Like, I like that move because the problem with Ben Simmons is at the end of the game, your point guard can't not be able to shoot and go to the free throw line. And I like Dinwiddie. I think Dinwiddie is one of those guys that he's not a great player, but I really like him when it matters the most.
I think he's a tad overrated, but I don't agree with you. I feel like in this whole landscape of these deals, Dinwiddie's getting a little bit overrated and LeVert a little bit underrated. That's just my personal opinion.
I would rather have LeVert.
If I'm Brooklyn, like, I feel like LeVert, sorry, then you can go ahead. Like, I'm not dealing LeVert. Like, that's how I look at him. Like, I'm not dealing him at all. Like, he's a perfect third piece, and he's like my future. He's like my stepping stone to the future. I'm that high on LeVert. I really am. Like,
Yeah, I like LeVert a lot.
I mean, I get it. It's James Harden, but like, I'm really not dealing LeVert if I'm Brooklyn.
What I like about Spencer Dinwiddie, though, for Philadelphia is that's the ultimate issue with Ben Simmons, right? The same problem with Giannis. When you get down to a half-court game at the end of the game, like, he's useless to you at this point, right? Like, because like he can't shoot free throws. But Dinwiddie's a guy who can have the ball in his hand, make good decisions. He's made a lot of big shots for Brooklyn. And I know they're not in like huge, like playoff type of game scenarios, but he's a guy you can get the ball to at the end of the game and be like, hey man, we need a bucket right here. He's a bucket getter.
He is a bucket getter, no doubt about it. And I will say this, like, about Ben Simmons and Giannis, like, those guys are elite at everything but shooting. So I don't think like you can't win with them. You just have to put the pieces around them.
Yeah, well, like the Bucks, like you need Middleton to play big at the end of the game.
Yeah.
And not I always liked Middleton in clutch situations. He was always really good when he was a little bit more of an unknown, but the last couple of seasons in the playoffs, like he just hasn't played well most of the time.
No, he is not. So now he's got a little more help. You know, maybe we'll see if that helps him. All right. I'll move on. This one, I mean, Celtics find tax relief. They're doing their 26th pick and canner for Mario Hezonja. That deal means absolutely nothing. But the last one, this is interesting. So Boston gets the number 6 pick in this draft and Dwayne Dedman, and Atlanta gets Marcus Smart and the number 14, 26, and 30 picks in this draft. If I'm Atlanta, I'm definitely making that move. Marcus Smart is a perfect fit for them. If I'm Boston, probably not making this move.
No, I don't like this move for Boston. Again, Marcus Smart is not as talented as Gordon Hayward and Jaylen Brown. But what he is he's the emotional leader of that team. He is a hard-nosed defender. He brings the nasty to a game, and I want him on my squad. If you're Boston, you have to think you are competing right now to come out of the East and play whoever's represents the West next year. You were that close the season before. I want Marcus Smart on my squad. He brings the intangibles that I need to win a championship.
No doubt about it.
Some things cannot be measured in DFS stats, and that's what Marcus Smart is. In a lot of ways, like a better version of Pat Beverly.
Mm-hmm. For sure. This is true.
So I need that nasty.
I mean, he is, although he's a much better version because he's good offensively. And he's not that good, but like I like Marcus Smart a lot.
What's not to like?
You know, honestly, he's built in a lot of the same way as like Drew Holiday. They're different. Yeah. Drew Holiday is better offensively, but Marcus Smart is good.
And Marcus Smart's three-point shot has improved over the last couple of seasons.
Yeah.
You still wouldn't call him like an all-out, like dead-eye three-point shooter. But he's had some big games from three-point range because they do tend to leave him open because, you try to pick the lesser of all these evils. Well, he's no longer like a black hole like Ben Simmons from three-point range where you can just leave him completely uncovered. So I like the kid. I think he's a good player. I'd want him on my team. I would love if Milwaukee had Marcus Smart. He just brings that dog in the fight.
That's exactly what I was going to say. I'd love him on my team. That's all that matters. Exactly what I was going to say.
Yeah, not just if you're a Buck or a Cavalier. Any 32 teams would be happy to have Marcus Smart on their squad.
No doubt about that.
You need guys like that. He's got like that Kobe, like just nasty work ethic dog in him that like is almost impossible to replicate. And only few people have that.
I feel like he's the prototypical type of guy. Like you hate him on the other team and you love him on your team.
Yeah.
A guy that was not as good as Marcus Smart, but was a lot like this for the Cavs was Varejao.
Way back in the day, we're going now.
Yeah, he was good though.
Yeah, he did. those intangibles that cannot be measured. So we live in the world of fantasy and sports betting and DFS and stuff like that. And there's a lot of, what's the best word I'm trying to, like, statistical analysis goes into and stuff like that. But that is just something that is unmeasurable. Like, who do you want in your foxhole when there's 2 minutes left in the game, or you're in a big game 7 or something like that? I want Marcus Smart in my foxhole.
Yeah, I'm with that. I definitely agree with that. Like, no doubt about it.
Like, do you think if the Clippers had Marcus Smart last year, that they were going to fold at the end of these big games? Or he's the kind of guy that, like, grabs Kawhi and Paul George, like, grab your fucking vaginas and let's do this.
Yeah, 100% agree with that.
All right. Any other ones?
No, that was it. That Varejao was really way back, though. That was like LeBron's first run as a Cav.
Yeah. Okay. Sorry, I just got an email for a second.
No, you're good. So hopefully we'll have more to talk about tomorrow.
Anybody else you feel like should be on the move? I know we mentioned Kevin Love, and as a Cavs fan, like, what is Kevin Love? 34, maybe?
I don't know. Is he that old?
I'm looking him up right now. $31. So maybe he's a little younger, but he has a ton of injury issues, right?
I mean, yeah, he just seems like he can't stay healthy now. He's good when he plays, though. Like, the idea of his skill set on Portland is much better than McCollum. I don't know. I'm sure you agree with that. Like, if they were both healthy.
Yeah, because you want the ball in Dame's hands. And, like, Gary Trent Jr. has shown he's a walking bucket also.
Yeah, right?
Like, because Kevin Love's trade value right now is also super low, I have to imagine.
Yes. But the thing about him with the Cavs and why, like, I feel like he doesn't belong on the Cavs anymore, obviously. Like, they need to free up shots to see what they have with the young guys. Like, when Kevin Love is not good enough to win you anything anymore. And he's too old now to even do what he used to do in Minnesota, which was, put up really, really good numbers. He'll still have good games, and we even saw it last year. Like, he didn't play huge minutes. Like, he needs to go to a contender and play limited minutes.
Right. And with Cleveland not even being close to, like, getting there, you don't want to be better. You don't want to win more games. You want your guys to grow. And hopefully, I'll take the 3rd pick instead of the 7th.
That's how you want to win more games, like by one of your young players stepping up and becoming that guy, not by Kevin Love. Like, I agree with you wholeheartedly.
Where could Kevin Love go right now that would be a good fit for everybody? Again, I don't think you're getting a ton out of him, also because his contract is insane for what you probably feel like you're getting at. But where would he be? Right. I know you mentioned Portland. I can see how that would work.
I think that works. I mean, honestly, he fits a lot of contenders because when you put him on a contender, he doesn't need to, do as much. Like, honestly, if Harden doesn't go, he fits on Brooklyn.
Sure. He fits with the Lakers. Go back to LA.
Yeah, definitely fits with the Lakers. I mean, he fits with Milwaukee. He fits with Philly.
Everybody could use a stretch 4, right? That rebound.
Yeah, exactly. Like, he's a much better fit for Philly than, like, Al Horford.
I mean, he has got to be the best rebounder of all time with less than a 4-inch vertical.
Yeah, right. And he rebounds and shoots threes. And honestly, even if he's not even much of a rebounder anymore, he's a great shooter still. Great shooter.
Yeah, I mean, 3-point percentage, 37, 36, 41, 37, 36. I mean, you'll take that from your 4 all day long.
Right. I mean, he's one of the better stretch 4s that we've seen.
Yes. Interesting. Yeah, hopefully there's more news. Like, I still think Denver might do something, although I'm not sure what's left.
I mean, I feel like Denver, what move can they make? I mean, I don't know if there's a move for them to really make here. Also their team, like, unlike Milwaukee that, like, had to make a move, Denver does not need to make a move. Like, they almost were a year too early. You know what I mean?
Sure. What could they do to get better? I don't want to move from – you keep Jamal Murray and Jokic. Those are your untouchables.
It's a matter of whether they deal Porter or not. You know what I mean?
Yeah, because if you're trying to win right now, like, Michael Porter Jr. needs a little more time to work on his craft. But, like, if I'm, like, a team that's got nothing going on, if I'm the New York Knicks if I'm, any of these teams that are going nowhere, I'd love this guy to try to develop, to build my team around him because he is just a walking bucket.
Well, that's a guy that I would deal if that like would pursue me to deal Beal if I'm Washington. Like he had anything like that, but Porter's much better than anything Milwaukee has. Porter couldn't be a stud. I mean, he's got that upside. He's 6'10" and can score.
I mean, imagine if you had Bradley Beal on the Nuggets this year.
Right.
And you couldn't just sell out on Jokic and Murray on every single play, and they could play 3-man basketball instead of 2. That'd be a good look. Plus, you have Will Barton back this year. Will Barton, Jamal Murray, Bradley Beal, and Jokic. That's a team.
That's maybe why they're thinking they don't need to make a move, though. People don't even talk about Barton, but a lot of last season, he was their most reliable player for a lot of it, for a lot of the past couple years. And he doesn't have the upside of Murray or Porter. He's a solid guy for you to have, though. Interesting to see what they're going to do, though. Like, there aren't enough minutes, so they almost have to make a move because they're still, like, I don't think they can just sit Porter anymore on the bench. Do you?
He's too good. You got to let him grow. He's got to work on his defense, though. That's just an effort thing more than anything.
For sure. But then Barton comes back. Like, I like the guys like Monte Morris. They are a team that maybe they're a little bit too deep. We've talked about that, though.
Yeah, they should. They should be trying to get Bradley Beal. I think they showed us something. They beat the Lakers 2 games.
Definitely. I mean, yeah, they made the Western Conference Finals.
We often say we like the cut of their jib. I like the cut of their jib. I thought huge growth moments for Jamal Murray. Jamal Murray is always a guy who's been too passive in the regular season, but he showed like I'm a guy. Like, he opened a lot of eyes in the playoffs.
Yeah, he opened a lot of eyes. I mean, in the bubble, in the playoffs, like, him, Devin Booker, Donovan Mitchell, all 3 guys really, really played well in the opportunities that they had.
Interesting, guys. All right. I don't think we've got any other big news, and we've rambled on long enough, but it was fun to kind of talk it over. Just get fired up for NBA that's coming along. Still got the NBA package up for super sale right now, only $60. You can pay through the Venmo or PayPal address below. It covers you for the full year. Well, let's get after it.
Yeah, let's get it, guys. Thanks.